that, we're going to start on to our social influencer panel. I believe these two individuals need no introduction, but nonetheless, I still will provide the information. We have an esteemed guest, Miss Nina Davuluri. She challenged the Miss America stereotype by becoming the first Indian American to win the title back in 2014. She is one of those ladies who not only dispels the myth that women can't just be beautiful, but also brainy. She also completely smashes that, beauty and brains kind of motto that goes on to smithereens. Now with Miss Parmita, she and I have gone back a couple of years and we spoke over a couple of times online, and we actually met in person. And this lady, let me tell you, she is a powerhouse. She uses her social media presence to empower women through cultivation of self-image, confidence, and powerful inner and natural beauty. Her weekly content reviews that bring about an idea of positive change and the constructive impact that it has in the lives of women everywhere. So with that, Nina, personally, let me ask you the first question. I've been following you since the day you were crowned, but some members of our community may not know the full scope of your story and what all happened when you won the actual Miss America crown. Could you talk about your experience of combating racism since winning, and what have you done since then?
Yeah, thank you first and foremost so much for having me. I'm really glad that we are having this conversation. And I do, I've been reading the chat, I've been on here, and I thank you guys for really opening this conversation with police brutality and Black Lives Matter. That should be the first and foremost, topic that we're addressing. So thank you for that. One of the reasons why I'm here today and I was asked to speak on this topic is that as we open this broader conversation with everything happening, in America and really around the world, we're talking about really how racism impacts several communities. And, as previous panelists said, we're really starting to have these conversations in our home. And to give you a little bit of a very brief background, because I do want to take the time to dive into this as much as we can. Very quickly, the morning after I won Miss America, I woke up to quite a few xenophobic comments about my race, my religion. And I think one of the more interesting things that I also experienced the morning after I won was a headline in the Times of India that read, "Is Miss America too dark to be Miss India?" Whoa. And I feel like we really need to address this topic, and that's what I'm doing exactly right now. And it's the journey that I've been on over the past 2 years officially, is producing a documentary called Complexion and really unpacking the idea of colorism. And I think first and foremost, we need to, when we have this conversation about race, which is happening, and I'm so glad that it is, and when we have these discussions, we need to understand, accept, and hear that colorism is a form of racism. And that is seen in many countries across the world. In the documentary, we're highlighting countries in Africa, as well as East Asia and South Asia, as well as, here in America. And so this is a global conversation and it exists everywhere, but talking specifically about South Asia and South India, or I should say India, to a South Asian audience. This is something that we have experienced in our homes and inherently hundreds of times. And it affects, I think colorism affects socioeconomic status, class, jobs, careers. And unless we can really truly understand that and look inside ourselves and our own communities and why we think that light skin is the ideal, that white skin is elite, then darker skin, we really can't open this conversation and true forms of racism. So that's really been my passion and the journey that I've been on since my time winning, or since my time being Miss America, I suppose. And that's something that I'm looking forward to talking more about with you guys today.
Thanks, Nina. And we're going to delve into that a little more later on. Now, I'm going to give the next question to Ms. Parmita. So, Parmita, you've been slaying since day one, I'm sure. You've also been consistently working to bridge what we like to call traditional Indian culture with the more so millennial new generation culture. So speak about your struggles, about what you face when it comes to promoting these more forward-thinking and ideas, and also welcome to the panel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on this panel. I just want to make sure that you can see me, hear me, and All good to go? Thank you. Thank you once again. And it was wonderful listening to Nina and all the other speakers before. So that makes me really happy to be on this panel as well. So thank you for having me. So when you ask me about the struggles that I have faced to promote forward thinking, I think one of the biggest reason is that we restrict ourselves due to self-doubt and harsh self-judgment. And coming from India, I faced it there. And when I came here, it happened to me again here. But one thing that I understood really quickly was that if I replace this self-judgment with curiosity, and it just completely changed everything. Thinking that I am just a mom, or I am too brown, or I don't fit in, or I live in an area where there are too many white women. Will my kids fit in? Will my ideas be welcome? I just scrapped those ideas out of my head and started believing that I'm an Indian woman. And there were a lot of questions from my friends and family. Seriously, Indian woman, you want to teach Americans what confidence is? And I was like, yes, because I know how much these women are struggling. They judge themselves so harsh here. They criticize themselves. Women don't support one another. And that itself is a struggle for women. So instead of doubting, I think I want to welcome all the other communities into my world. Instead of thinking I am not welcome in their world, I want to open heartedly invite everyone in my world. And that's what I did right from day one. So the thought that if you're doing what you're doing will bring you what you have got has to change. So if I change my actions, the reaction I get from everyone will change, be it culture or knowledge. If I am aware of the fact that I'll either be loved or ridiculed for it, and I am willing to take my chances, then I was willing to take my chances. And I knew I cannot escape criticism, even if I did nothing at all. There was a phase when I was just a mom, just dropped my kids to school and back, and I yet faced criticism, and there are still people who will judge you. So I'm like, guess what? If I do something that my heart really desires and I don't judge myself, I think the solution could be different. The result could be different. So I believe that everyone has something valuable to share, and something that no one else can offer. It's just unique to you. And that's what I like to focus on. And that's what I think people will love me for. And I just worked on that. And time again, it's proven that if you have something worth seeing, something worth listening to, something worth sharing, it'll just wrap it up with confidence and people cannot ignore you. And that's what I have been doing ever since I decided to share my thoughts and ideas. And now it has become this huge platform on YouTube and Instagram. But that's what I intend to do. And I hope I can take this platform forward with the current situation in the country and use my voice for a bigger and better change. So I hope that was the answer you were looking for. I'm not sure.
No, that was fantastic. And it's good to know that everything is wrapped with a little bit of confidence. And I think that's how both of you guys are both considered bold influencers in our community. Like, you break the stereotype, you smash those things to smithereens. Like, this is a huge topic for our community right now, even though it's existed for centuries, if not eons at this point. You guys are speaking up, you're being the face of basically of what activism is at this point, but in a different manner. So let me ask you this. This is for both of you. You're considered this bold influencer, right? So when it comes to our traditional Indian culture and media, it almost seems, since whenever this whole media typhoon started to exist, Nina, you spoke about this. When it comes to our own country, especially Indian media, it comes down to our heritage, skin color, and this is an issue because Nina, when you won, you were considered too dark, right? But then when someone like Parmita won her Miss Asia title, she was too light. And then when I'm a local Miss Beauty pageant, I was considered the mix in between. So this whole thing goes around colorism. And Nina, I saw your IGTV video today where you posted with your new, I guess, complexion series. So what can we do as a community? What can people like you encourage people like myself or just people interested in how we can combat this prominent issue of colorism? And how do you guys plan to combat this issue? Nina, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I think first of all, you know, as I was thinking about this myself, you know, I've been working on this documentary, I'll say, you know, essentially my entire life through my experiences, but officially for 2 years. And we're finally, you know, unfortunately, truly unfortunately, it took the death of George Floyd for people to start listening and to have this conversation, and the death of hundreds before him for people to finally be awoken, I suppose, or for America to be in this place. And so, you know, while I was working on this, the timing of complexion is very relevant, sadly. And so for me, I think as I was trying to explain this and put this in terms of how people could really understand, it was really first we had to unpack what colorism meant and how I have seen it portrayed through the hundreds of interviews and traveling around various countries around the world. And it's different in every community, and I'm going to focus on only the South Asian piece for this conversation. But to give you a very quick example, I remember one of the times that I was filming in India, and there was, you know, we were in every area from villages to large urban cities to get a full spectrum of class across every, you know, place that we could. And once we were in a village, and there was one of the street stands that we had stopped at as we were driving. And I saw a mother who had clearly been working in the fields all day by her sari type that she was wearing. And she was with her 7-year-old daughter. And at this stand, she approaches it and she buys a 5 rupee packet of Fair and Lovely. And 5 rupees had to be at least, you know, 25% of her wages that day, realistically thinking. And she hands this packet to her daughter and she says to her, "So you don't have the life that I have." And she said that in Telugu. And I genuinely believe that this mother really did love her daughter, but the inherent belief that this mother has is that fair skin, white skin, is the definition of beauty and is her daughter's ticket to success. And when you look at India as a whole, and when you see what we're berated by media images, I think there's a couple things that we can do to create change, but we have to look at the problems. So I think the first problem is that what do people, you know, as I'm looking at her, as I'm trying to speak with her and relate to her, I realize that, you know, unfortunately, many people in India and around the world don't have access to these conversations that we're having. They simply don't. They're not on Instagram. They don't have access to the internet. There's a whole sector of populations that are left out of these very important discussions. I realized in India that from my experiences, what they do have access to and what they do see is Bollywood. They see images of Bollywood celebrities for skin whitening creams, for fairness ads. It is plastered along billboards, on the side street stands, in, you know, stores that they walk into. It is constantly surrounding them. They are messaged that if they are not fair, they won't have the right career. They won't get married. You see matrimonial ads, and we're guilty, like, our community, even here, even as Indian Americans, people are still make those comments. Those comments have happened in my household. They happen with my families. They happen among my peer groups. And to think that, oh, you know, we don't believe that is absolutely false, because it exists and we have to look inwards. So yes, I think one part of the problem, obviously first, is looking inwards at ourselves. What are we saying to our children? What are we saying in our own homes and communities? Two, they are berated by these media images, by Bollywood and celebrities promoting this life that white is better and ideal. And then three, obviously there's these products that are still available. You can't have one industry without the other. You know, there are huge companies that continue to produce these skin whitening products and are the ones that are paying celebrities billions of dollars, not only in India, around the world as well, to send these toxic messages to communities. And so every time a company creates a product and every time a celebrity endorses a skin whitening product together, they send the message that white skin is ideal and white skin is better than dark skin, that people are not enough, that they are not worthy, that they are not valued, that they are not heard because they are dark. this is the core of racism. And I truly believe that. And unless we can really address this, like I said, I don't think we can really open this conversation and move forward. So one of the things that I have started doing, and I hope that many on this call will join me if you agree, is to started a petition for companies to stop the production of these skin whitening products, and to use the revenue that they have, this let me be clear, $1 billion revenue that they have created for themselves by preying off of these archaic notions of skin color, to use that towards actually building products that are inclusive and really, creating, putting an end to systemic racism. And that is a first step that we can take.
And Parmita, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with what Nina just shared. And I have had some of these experiences as well. I know you mentioned that when I participated, I was considered too light. No, I wasn't. I think in India, right from day one, you're told to, hey, apply lighter foundation. You need to look lighter. And there's no concept of contouring or dark. There's no, you need to look lighter. And I was always told that. And even after all these years, when I go back to India with my kids, the first thing that my son, who was just 4, he noticed, he's like, he knows Deepika Padukone, and he's like, that girl is not light. And every hoarding that I'm seeing, this girl is like peachy white and glowing. This is not how this woman looks. I kid you not, this is right outside the airport. And he's like, every woman is light skinned, but in reality, Indian women don't look like that. Why are they making women look like this? And he doubted, being a boy, he doubted his own skin color. He's like, is my skin color not good enough that this is the skin color that people expect? So imagine what the girls must be going through when you're expecting this from them. I was a national makeup artist for Bobby Brown here as well, and in New York. And we used to make fun of some of the Indians who came there, frankly, but we just knew this. I just sell them anything that is lighter than their skin color and they'll buy it. And it is such a shame that women, but we can't help it. This is something that is drilled into women's head right from their childhood. South Indians cling, not South Indians, South Asians cling to this mythography that holds that elite or upper class or caste has, they are Aryans or they're like extensions of Caucasians. They are acutely color conscious. So when they see shades of brown, they see different shades. They don't see just one shade. You're like light brown, dark brown, and depending on that, they judge you. But to outside people, they observe us just as brown or even black. So coming from India, you have that thought that drags your confidence down. And to top it up, there are constant statements that are made like, who will marry you? Or it'll be harder for you to get married. It'll be harder for you to get a job. Or if you get an amazing job, then they're like, oh, you have a job in spite of being so dark. And how did you make that happen? Like, it is not possible for a woman of dark skin to achieve anything. I even remember this whole conversation about Nina becoming Miss America. And it is very, very shameful that even India thought, not just in America, even in India, this was a huge conversation. Skin is not who we are, but it gets drilled into our head that basically decides what our destiny is going to be. Women have had enough, or even now, they have enough to prove that they are good enough. You are a woman, and that means that you're not good enough for a job. You're a brown woman, you have dark skin, you can't be married, you can't find a good family to marry, you are overweight, that's why you're not good enough. You have either too little or too much of something. There's always a reason why women are not treated equally. But I think if you highlight what is special in you, that sets you apart, and that helps you break barriers in your mind. So I think the ultimate solution that I can give is that women have to support each other in believing. It is women who drill this in our heads as well. So it is very important that we support each other in believing that you're good enough for so many things. You bring so much to the table just for who you are and not because of your skin color. So
Agree. Changes like this won't happen overnight. We understand, and Nina alluded to this. This is a billion-dollar industry.
yeah,
They thrive on, I guess, taking the kids' vulnerabilities, essentially, not just kids, young women who are influenced by people like just like you two. And the fact that you two are even speaking about this conversation to combat colorism, um, that's a step forward, in my opinion. And I think that's the first step in order for us to even, that's how we even have this platform right now. Like
yeah,
we're coming together as a community because we acknowledge that this is a prominent issue. I know I've personally faced it when growing up. I was the only Indian girl at my entire school. That was how it was. And this is in the state of Washington too. So it's been a struggle. So to hear your guys' stories, it's absolutely prominent and absolutely necessary in my opinion, especially now. And Nina, thank you for, and I know you, like you mentioned, you started this complexion series pretty much your entire life story, but right now, I believe that when you do release it, which I will ask when you are releasing this, when you do release this, it will have a huger impact than all of us had even imagined. And just shifting the conversation a little bit with the current unrest of our country, and being that you guys are both major social influencers, how do you both, I guess, say, foresee the future of social when it comes to movements like Black Lives or All Lives Matter? And how do, I mean, you guys have a platform, but when it comes to talking to South Asians or just basically our Indian community, how do we talk about race and diversity in a manner where they are able to understand? Because this is such a sensitive topic, no matter how many times we try to educate them, give them the resources. There is that generational gap. So how do we bridge those cultural differences rooted in our communities, being that we are so young and they are more senior and of course knowledgeable than us in a different way? So how do we have these conversations? Nina, I'll go to you.
Yeah, I think this is something that I've been asked a lot within my social media following, and just something that I've been seeing amongst South Asians. Unfortunately, we're in this, I think a lot of young people, our generation and younger, continue to get their resources on Instagram. And while that's great, I've seen some amazing organizations, South Asians for Black Lives, South Asian Nation. There's just so many now out there who are using their platform to specifically provide resources for South Asians on how to talk to their families, how to address this amongst older generations. I think, the advice that I've tried to, or the advice I can only give, especially like speaking from my own background, is one that, and I know that we kind of have a broad age range on this call, which I'm so happy that that's the case, is, for one, children, if you are a children and you see something, you see your parent making a comment, which I have experienced, you have to say something. It doesn't have to be mean, and I get it. Confronting your parents or those that are close to you, your grandparents or even your aunties and uncles, is incredibly difficult, but you have to do it. And it doesn't change overnight. There are multiple conversations that I have had to have within my own family to get to where we are today. Just to give you an example, I was speaking with a younger person, and this was at a college that I was at, and she said, I don't know what to do because my parents said to me, oh, you can marry who you want as long as they're not a BMW. And I had never heard that term. I didn't know what it meant. And for those of you who also don't know what she meant, and I asked her to define what that means, she said, if they're Black, Muslim, or white. And she said, I don't know how to talk to my parents. This was a year ago. And I said, you have to explain to them how you're feeling. And I hope that, this is a form of racism, and ask them why they believe this. And I feel like if you pose the question why, they have to answer, right? It's an answer of, oh, just because. That's not good enough for us when this is a true issue. And so I hope that, for the parents who are on this call, if maybe that is something you've said, or maybe that, there's another comment that you've said, or if your child does approach you, I hope that you can be open in that conversation, and just genuinely have an open and honest conversation, and ask yourselves those questions. Why do I have this belief? And I don't think many people really take the time to think why, and I feel like now we're in a place where we are. And I think that's really incredible, and it's those small steps that we can take. But ultimately, yes, while social media, can give you the 1, 2, 3, 4s of how to talk to your parents, or vice versa, how to talk to your children, to your young children who aren't necessarily aware of this. It really is just being open, honest, and vulnerable, and know that it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be one time.
And Parmita, you're a mom, so I'm expecting an amazing answer here. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know about amazing answer, but my thoughts are that we need to start thinking about our own prejudices too. What is your emotional response to the current protest? And a lot of white families, Indian families, Asian families, everyone's opening up to this because we did not think about it. We did not think about sharing this, or we just wanted it to shove like under the carpet. And now it is time, because there are certain things that they have learned, or we all have learned, which is a certain behavior that just comes naturally when we see Black people around us. All of that needs to change. When you clench your handbag when you see a Black person coming into the elevator, or you even get out of it, that is humiliating to that person. Those are very small gestures of showing racism. They are, when you see someone crossing you by on a street, you move away. It's like you almost feel like that person is going to attack you. That is humiliating. If someone does that, and it has happened to us, it has happened to my family, and where people pass remarks just because we are not white people, and it's shameful. And it's really, I can't even imagine how these people must be feeling when this has happened to them over the years. And it is time we share this with our children and help them understand that you cannot do this and you cannot let this happen to you. If you have kids, think about how you can educate them differently. If you can see beauty in others and in yourself, that is the best way I think I can raise my kids. And my kid has gone through this, both of them, and I have had to take actions to make sure that they feel secure in here, and they feel like my parents are there, and the society cannot just take me for granted because of my color. And when my son, again, when he was in kindergarten, which is 5, somebody called him, your skin color is like poop. And he was very offended, he was hurt, and he told me after a few days, because he didn't want any issues at school. When I went to the teacher to talk about it, the teacher literally wanted to sideline the issue and attack me back, saying that you're teaching your kids about words such as bullying at an early age. You're not being a good parent by letting your kids talk that way. I was like, excuse me. That's when my husband and I was like, this is not a time for us to doubt our parenting abilities. This is when we both come together and make sure that our son feels secured, and we will take this battle wherever it needs to be. We made sure that the teacher did not take this for granted. The other kid didn't just say thank you and walk away. I was like, no, this needs to be a learning lesson for everyone in the class. We need to talk about it. We need to make sure that the school is doing something about it. And before us, this had happened to a lot of kids in the school, especially Black community, but they just take it. They're like, we are used to this, but not anymore. This is the time to open up and say, yes, everyone is hoping for a change. And if we can be a part of this change, let us be that change. If you have a voice, use that voice. And trust me, everyone has a voice. Everyone can use their voice. And that's why slowing down on social media and not posting your happy, perky pictures or promotions or messages, divert that to let Black voices speak, to show what they are saying. I personally take pride in my culture, and I include Americans in it. And frankly, a lot of people have been very welcoming, and they have taken it. Some people don't do it. We moved into another area in the last couple of years, and this is even more white dominated. But I make sure that every year when my child says something like, I don't want to put a red dot on my forehead because it's Diwali, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to come to your school and have a Diwali party where every kid's going to have a red dot on their forehead. Everyone's going to have prasad. Everyone's going to do Lakshmi Puja and understand the meaning of this, because it is important for my kids to see that their culture is accepted by others as well, and that my parents are so proud of it and confident about what we bring to this country. We make this country colorful. Everyone does it. Every country who brings their people in here from Asia, from Africa, from India, all of us make this country beautiful. And America can't take that away. They cannot not notice that. So I have to put in those efforts. If my kid says that, hey, you know, don't give me Indian food in lunch because that's not what other kids are bringing, then I want to make sure that other kids enjoy it too. I invite their parents home, have parties where it's just Indian food, and my kids need to know that Indian food is accepted. People like it. And that's how I try to pass my message to my kids, that it's not just good enough in words. It has to be shown in actions. And they see me do that every day. They see me do that in my videos. They see me do that in my action. And I want them to grow up to be really confident kids who feel safe in this country. And this is the time I think we need to start making them feel safer. And even as an influencer, I think it is time I take more action on my social media pages as well to make everyone feel like they are included. I want to support Black creators, Black owners, business owners. We can all do it. If we can't be a part of the protest, there is so much more we can do to show our support. Talk to our kids, that is one. Show our solidarity on social media. Donate for causes that need funds. If you can't pay, there are still ways. Like what I want to be doing is I want to help people at an individual level. If I can support creative Black people who have businesses, maybe I can at least once or twice a week, I can do completely complimentary promotions for people, help them get introduced to the world or to my audience. Or there's so many, like you can watch movies, films, donate, buy movies that are made by Black people, attend concerts. You can amplify their voices by sharing, by retweeting. You can go to their cafes, go to their restaurants, bars. I mean, there's just endless ways we can support the community. So I'm just trying to spread a message to my kids in this way, and hopefully to a bigger society as well.
Thank you, Parmita. Thank you for being so vulnerable, both of you, first and foremost. I appreciate your time, sincerely, and thank you once again. We're going to be moving on to the next panel with that. So as I close out this panel, no introduction is needed for this next individual. I know we all have been talking about her in our Malayali community. Sini Safan, you need no introduction. You have taken the stand when it comes to Malayali Lives Matter. And Sini, the stage is yours. Feel free to take on.